Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about the news of the day, Jayden Daniels starting quarterback, a new story on it, analysis story on it. So there you go. And if you want to become a member of the show, go to the Empire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on that, find the membership level you like, go from there. For you gold members, I'm telling you, I'm in the process of setting up one of the private private Zoom session for you gold members with Santana Moss. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully that can be this week, but I'll get you news of that when it happens. So anyways, there you go. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders there, both dressed in black. Bram, I don't know why we have black on today. It's not a funeral procession. They actually had good news for them out there today. So anyways, the news of the day, as we record this, Jayden Daniels being named the starter. I think I can go like, oh my gosh, who saw that coming? But I am curious, like your thoughts on the process that led up to this and the way they handled in naming him the starter.
First, I wear black like 3-4 times a week, and you know this, so you're copying.
I do know that.
Right.
Yes.
So second, now's the time on sprockets when we dance. That's what it look like right now. Let's see. The process getting to this.
Yeah. And because they didn't name him the starter at the start of camp. They did it now. What did you think? I have no problem with what they did. What did you think of this?
I know everybody, there was some banter in the media tent today about like, well, we knew this was going to happen. Why didn't you just say it? I don't know. Like, why can't we just let the process play out? Like, I like everybody else is competing. And I'll give you this example. Like, the number 1 overall pick is Caleb Williams. The Bears traded Justin Fields. So the road was opened up. And if you look at the backup quarterback situation, nobody's challenging him for that spot. And, he also, if you listen to him, I mean, these two, maybe they're closer personality wise than you'd think, but they don't seem like it. And if you listen to like Caleb Williams at the combine, and I'm not going to take physicals for people, and I want to be the number 1 pick and all that stuff, like, I don't think there was a way to go about it without saying it up front that he's the guy. And this is a very different personality. And then take the number 3 pick, like Drake May, who is going through it a little bit. Like early in camp in New England, they're saying Jacoby Brissett is maybe or probably their starter. And maybe things changed over the weekend because apparently he performed relatively well. I'll be very interested to see if he plays this weekend here. But like, he's the number 3 overall pick with no returning quarterback, and they're slow rolling him. And here we are in the middle of it. And Dan Quinn says, first off, I thought he was honest about it from the get-go. He said, there's no secret here, which was his way of basically saying, we all know where we want this to end up, but we just want the process to happen to end up there. And everything we've seen along the way, they landed at it for all the right reasons. And, I think he's earned the job, and I think he's the best person for the job. And that's the good news, because they used the number 2 overall pick on him, and he's supposed to be the quarterback of the future, and it's good for him. He's the quarterback of the now.
And, it's funny because a couple of things when he talks about things, I think this is what has won over this team. And it's sincere. The way he discusses his role here, how his approach, et cetera. He said, you have to earn it. Nothing is given. Doesn't matter what I did in college, says he has to go out and prove it. He says all the right things, but I think it's genuine, which is why he won over teammates during this process, the veterans. I think when you're bringing in some veterans like Ertz and Bobby Wagner and all that, you want to be able to tell them that this guy that we're entrusting, this is the guy, guy. And I think, and they wanted to let that happen naturally and organically, and it did. And, listen, we know that at the end of spring, there was no doubt when they drafted him, there was really no doubt. It's just a matter of when and how it looked getting there, because we've seen it here, Bram, where they name guys a starter, and then you get through camp, it's like, with this guy at the end of camp, you're thinking like he's doing everything that they had hoped he would and maybe more.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it was a faux competition or they were trying to make him prove something or anything like that. They just went through the process. Like, this is this is year one. I think people keep forgetting this. Like, this is year one for literally everybody. The whole roster's been reset. Everything is different. And with Quinn, I think, like, I appreciate that through all of this, and there's a few people we can talk about if you want to, like Jamin Davis, Emmanuel Forbes, Jahan Dotson, who are carryover players, former first round picks. There are no sacred cows here. They're all asked to perform. And so I think it would be ridiculous for this group to walk in and go, well, we picked these guys, so therefore they're going to be treated differently than everybody else. I don't think that's the baseline that they're trying to set here. I think they're trying to build up camaraderie. I think it's important to them. Quinn talks about this all the time. Like, I know the whole mantra of camp was competition, but I think a lot of it too is I want to build personal relationships. I moved people's lockers around on purpose. I'm making them learn one another. I'm not having them stand by position groups anymore. The locker room is very shuffled and jumbled now. We went away twice. I know the joint practices just kind of worked out that way, but we went away twice. Like, I think they're really trying to build camaraderie. Part of Quinn's DNA and part of what was said about him was he wants to build personal relationships with everybody. And I think he's asking the team to do that with one another as well. And listen, we're all hopeful. He was the number 2 overall pick. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's an elite athlete, and he seems like a very nice young man who works very, very, very hard. Like, that's obvious. That's carried over here. But I also do hope that he's part of the team, and he seems to act that way. Like, I mean, that's all that seems to come out of him. So like, when I was talking about Caleb Williams and the personality he's displaying, not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm not suggesting that. But Jayden feels very different. Like, he welcomed this. Like, go ahead. I thought my favorite one that he said, I don't remember if it was mini camp or early in training camp, when someone asked him, like, about being a star quarterback, and he just stopped them and he goes, I'm not a star quarterback. I've never played here before. At every turn, he seems to accept that he doesn't know what he doesn't know, albeit, and this is the good part, when you watch him, whether it's practice or the 3 series in these games, cool, calm, collected, been there before, doesn't seem too big for him. And all of it is really, really, really good signs to me.
It is. And to those points, and there's a couple of things. One, if Dan Quinn is going to say there's going to be competition, this guy has to be part of that. You can't just say he's immune, exempted from that. You can't do that. And he also Quinn talked about how, in 10 years, he wants to be able to tell some kid, who's coming here as a draft pick, hey, we made this guy earn it too. So if he's got to earn it, you've got to earn it. So this is about, you talk about setting the foundation in your identity. That's part of the identity. And he clearly did earn it. And the other thing is, to their point about, the mixing of players and all that, we haven't been inside the locker room yet, but they really changed it up. In the past, it was, as you know, like, you'd have, you walk in the locker room, all the receivers are here, all the running backs are here, the quarterbacks are here, the D linemen over here. So you're with your group all the time. Now they have it changed up. So you get different guys meeting one another. I think for a young man like Daniels, who will evolve into a leader, that's a good thing. Like, he talks to Bobby Wagner all the time. I understand, like, he's pretty good with Daron Payne already. Like, that doesn't always happen. It just doesn't. So I think those are all good things. And then the last point, Bram, too, and you brought up awareness. And there have been young quarterbacks I've covered, who are not as self-aware as Jayden Daniels is. And it's not even close. And one of the things Quinn talked about in terms of that was the ability to correct mistakes. And so, if he brought up a play in Miami in the joint practice where you should have called for a motion, he didn't, whatever, but he knows what he didn't do, or what he needed to do, whatever. And he just talked about how very self-aware he is, and he's really good at understanding that and taking the corrections and then going and applying them, and knowing that, and not thinking that he knows everything and has it all figured out. He doesn't, but that's why I think he'll get better. So that also won them over. So, and I think that he's very self-aware, very.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to build here is positive, productive work environment. And I think that starts with, you have to make everybody earn their place, earn their role, and be part of the camaraderie and new chemistry that you're trying to build. And he seems to be eager to be part of that. That's really the good news here. I wouldn't blame him if he had an enormous ego, considering what he's done, so far. But he doesn't seem like he does. And, so that's great. Like, everybody's different. I'm not suggesting there's anything really wrong with it. At that level, if I was that I don't know how I would have acted at 22, 23 if I was that elite at something like that. So I don't know how I would have been, but he seems to really want to be kind of part of the team. I get to be around them, a little bit more than most because I travel with them. And I think it's natural to him. Like, I mean, I don't want to share too much because I don't like to talk about, what I get to see behind the scenes, but I will tell you that like it is very natural for him. Guys are gravitating to him. It seems like he's just kind of one of the guys. And I think that that's a really, really, really great sign. There is a lot of self-awareness there. And it seems like what Quinn wants to build here, which is this kind of open conversation, productive, positive environment. It does start with the best players on the team. He's going to be one of them, or they're not going to be good, but he's got to be one of them. And it seems that it kind of fits his mantra too, that he wants to be part of something like that.
No, that's a good point too, that if you want to build it right, if your best players work a certain way and have a certain attitude, others have to fall in line. And the other thing, it's funny because the way they built this team, by going out and getting those veterans, Ertz, Wagner in particular, and then Eckler, guys like that, it takes the leadership responsibility off. And now when they got it was whoever the rookie quarterback is. Well, clearly, obviously it's Jayden Daniels, but it takes that pressure off him that you just have to go out and play. And even Quinn was saying, like, he doesn't have to go out there and chew a player out and get him back in the huddle and do whatever. I said, that's their job. Like, his job is to handle the position and not to be, he doesn't have to come in and be the savior. And, and he's not coming here thinking he has to be the savior. Other guys have come here with that attitude.
Yeah. I'll tell you another one that happened the other night that I really appreciated about him. So, we did the interview with him after the game for the game broadcast, and he came over and, I said something to him about, because Miami, that was what I loved about this week. I'd hoped they'd get this out of the Jets game. I don't think they did, which was like a real test because the weather at that New York practice just really kind of blew that thing up and they were missing people. Then we went to the game. The Jets didn't dress 28 of their players. Like it felt like I don't think they probably got out of it what they had hoped to get out of something like that. But then they turn around and go to Miami. And those guys are total effort. Like they're not doing anything vanilla. They're running all of their stuff. Like they're putting their people up, not entirely, but Tua played, Achan played. Like they put a lot, the guys who weren't hurt, most of them played. And then in the practice, they're throwing all these crazy blitzes at him. In the game, they were doing it too. They did different coverages. Like it's like almost like we know we're good. We're just going to practice what we do. We're not trying to hide anything. I hope that we're them in a couple of years that we can sit there and go, we don't need to try to hide what we're doing because we're just good. Let's just practice who we are. But I think it was a great lesson and a great barometer for where these guys are. And I talked to Daniels after the game and I said something about that. And he said, it was really good what they did for me. And I said, why? And he goes, and the first thing out of his mouth was, he goes, I'm new at this. He goes, I don't know what I don't know. He goes, it was good to have a team in the preseason throw regular season stuff at me so I could see how I would react, how Cliff will react, how we'll communicate about this, how my teammates will communicate about this. I really want to thank you, Miami, because like, honestly, they did him a service this last week at that practice in that game by taking it seriously and throwing things at him that he hadn't seen yet. And he acknowledged it. And I appreciated that.
So what's amazing, and I that's a really good point. And the one thing too that I really appreciated or respected the way he handled that, Bram, they're throwing this stuff at him. He wasn't hit. He didn't get hit in the pocket.
Right.
Like he's getting rid of the ball. Now there was the one time the little lofted pass to McLaurin, and I wondered about this too, but Dan Quinn said that in the news conference today that should have gone to the other side.
Yes.
And
there's a wide open player on the other side.
But you know what? The McLaurin is there. Like if you can make that throw, that's fine. But the point is, there are guys coming clean. He doesn't get hit, and that's a testament to his poise and also decision making. As my dog barks in the background.
Yeah. I mean, like all of the signs are just there. Like the work ethic is there, the personality is there, the humility seems to be there, the desire to learn and be great seems to be there, the idea that he doesn't know what he doesn't know, he's learning on the fly seems to be there. He wants to be good. Like it's obvious. And then you watch his play and you go, geez, there are just these moments where when he puts it together, it's hard not to picture him being really, really good. And, but we'll see. And again, like that's the next step. Like he's still Week 1 is against Tampa Bay. It's a team that was in the playoffs. Todd Bowles is an expert defensive coordinator who brings a lot of complicated blitzes. We'll find out where he is. Oh, we're going to find out where he is in week 1. That is for sure.
For the entire month of August, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is offering multiple ways to save on climbing and zip lining and 50% off axe throwing. There are only a few Sundays left without football, so it's time to get that last summer adventure on the schedule. There's no better place to spend the last few days and nights of the summer with friends and family. Don't just take our word for it. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring was named the #1 aerial adventure park in North America by USA Today. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. So there you have it, folks. For the rest of the summer, you can get the best climbing, zip lining, and axe throwing in the country, up to 50% off right here in the DMV. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/kind. Well, what I also like about what he showed in the preseason too, and I'm going to compare and contrast a little bit with Caleb Williams because I didn't watch a lot of Caleb, but the one highlight or a couple highlights from Caleb Williams, it's all about him extending the play, making flashy plays, which is what he does. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I like about with Daniels, the stuff we're talking about is somewhat mundane. We're talking about getting rid of the ball for a 5-yard pass, but it's the location, the accuracy of it, the decision-making. Like, I love all of that. Like, again, Caleb Williams, fun to watch, flashy, but we don't know the down to down, what it's going to look like. With this guy, we're getting a sense of that.
Yes. Like I saw somebody put a thread about Caleb because those plays he had the other day were outrageous, and those are the things where I'm like watching that going, can our guy do that? Because that was nuts, like he's doing Mahomes things, but that's what he was doing when he was in Gonzaga, like everyone. So that went to Oklahoma, then USC, and now he's doing it already here. Okay, that's well and good, but go look at his line. Like he completed 50% of his passes, like it's not like he's crushing it. This guy has been efficient. It hasn't maybe been as flashy as something like that. I do think athletically he's capable of things like this. What I love about him, we talked about this from the get-go. What I loved about him coming out, which is why I was so positive this is the direction they would go, is that in his case, he's pass first. He's looking to go through progressions first. He's looking to make the right move first. And if he has to vacate and use his legs, we know what he's capable of if he does it. But it's not that Mahomes Caleb stuff, and it's not Lamar, but it seems like there's flashes of both of them there. Well, maybe not the Mahomesy stuff. We haven't seen him do the extend the play, spin around, run to the opposite side of the field, throw off, the opposite foot running the wrong way and throw a dime like Caleb. We haven't seen him do anything like that. And I actually don't think you're going to see him do a lot of that stuff because I think he makes his reads, he makes his decisions, he gets rid of the ball. If the pocket breaks down, he takes off. Like that may be boring on some level, but that's how you play this position. And so I'm very interested to see how it goes.
Oh, and that's what I like about it is that because of the decision making. I also, Bram, like the runs he's had have been designed runs. Yes. So I'm curious to see what happens when he gets out there. You see it's cover one, and you single high. You got the corners are in man, and you see the gap, and then you take off, and it's 40. Like that's when there's going to be some electricity too. We haven't seen that. And that's going to scare defenses as well. And so there's going to be an impact on how you play him or how they're going to have to play him because of that. So there's but again, there's been one really flashy play that he's had, and it was the pass to Diami. Otherwise, it's just been efficiency. And I'll take that because as a rookie to do that and I know it's preseason, whatever, but that's where I would be most encouraged because because the other stuff is going to come. We're going to see the other stuff. So, I think that's been a good thing. And then, the other thing is I know the receivers they're every time I talk to people there, Bram, it's ball placement, accuracy, decision-making, boom, boom, boom. That's what they're all excited about. Let's talk about a couple other things before we get out of here. You brought it up earlier, Jahan Dotson, Forbes, Davis, with Davis still working his way. I think you and I both believe he will definitely be on this roster.
Yeah.
Jahan Dotson at the receiver spot. What was your takeaway from the receiver spot the other night?
I thought like it was so funny how that happened, where a fantasy football reporter asked a question about wide receiver 2 because they're writing information about that, not realizing that was like, boy, that was diving knee deep into our beat. So that was really interesting. And the way Quinn answered it, obviously he opened up a can of worms, and I think he's been trying to shut that can of worms since by going a couple different directions, which one is we do think Jahan's very good. We're just trying to figure out where he fits here. And 2, we don't love the labels of 2, 3, 4, 5, and all that type of stuff. We're trying to not do that to people and say this is where you rank. Albeit though, Terry McLaurin's number 1. So like it's hard to make that argument if you don't say he's our number 1 guy and everyone else falls in line. Still, that being said, I don't know where he fits yet in the offense, and I don't think he does either. I will say this about him, like, and in all 3 of these cases, none of them, I think, are heading down a route where they're not going to be here. I think they're all going to be on the roster. They're all going to play prominent roles to some degree, maybe differently for Davis and Forbes. We can talk about that, but I really don't see a pathway to this team not finding a way to get Jahan on the field a lot. Now, the question is where, how, where does he fit best? And this might go back to what Quinn talks about a lot. We want to find out what people do their best and have them do more of it. And I'm not sure they know what that is yet. And there are a couple of things that I know, that they want him to be able to work on. There's some, some strength issues that they're asking him to do a little bit better. They know what kind of route runner is. They know what his speed is. He's got really soft hands. If his confidence is right, I'm not worried about him in all those ways, but the physicality of the game, I think, is very different for him than it's been in the past. And I think they're working on it. So where can they get him on the field to get an advantage for him? They're probably working that out. And, does he play prominently early in the season? It doesn't feel like it right now, but like, does he emerge by midseason when they figure out what it is that he does best and how they can utilize him? Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and I think the one thing to keep in mind too for people on Dotson, he still has talent. Like he can still help them.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is, like, is he going to be that 70 catch guy? Well, he certainly hasn't trended that way. And I think the other thing is, I think Dan Quinn would be happy to label someone as a number 2 if he thought they had a guy that was firmly there. And if you don't, then it's a bullpen by committee kind of situation. I think that's what they have. You have guys who are good at this. You have guys who are good at that. De'Ami Brown can do this. Zacchaeus can do that. Jahan Dotson can do this. And the strengths, and Luke McCaffrey, that's where the strength stuff comes into play, because out of the slot, he did a nice job the other night as, a couple routes, but also as a blocker. And that's where Jahan is just, he's going to get, and listen, there are on the checklist of things for them, a receiver, it's yak playing with urgency.
Yes.
And I think, the physicality of the position is important. As a blocker, it's not going to be the first thing, but it's on that list eventually. And, so there are things that he's not going to do well that they can find other guys to do. The difference is, like, when De'Ami was out there in the past, it was a run primarily. They put him and Cam Sims out there. It's like 85% chance run. It was easy. But with, so I think there are things he can definitely do to help them. So.
Hey, it's Bram Weinstein here, voice of the Commanders, and of course, frequent guest of this podcast, The John Keim Report. I wanted to let you all know that my show, which airs at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on ESPN 630, is now exclusively produced by Empire Media, my company, and is going to be distributed through our network. So I'm asking you, please, if you subscribe to this show and love this show, give mine a try as well. Subscribe to the Bram Weinstein Show wherever you get your podcasts, and many of the shows and many of the elements that are in the show will be available on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk a ton of Commanders and other DC sports. Check it out.
Forbes, what did you think of Forbes the other night? Did you have a chance to watch him in particular?
I didn't see a ton with him. Quinn went out of his way to say he had his best week this past week. I think Forbes falls into the category with Davis, where there is desire and work ethic, and I think this coaching staff appreciates that. So with Forbes, there's a couple things. Obviously, his size will always be a problem. So, and they know that, but can we get around it? Because I think they look at him in the way that Rivera's group looked at him, but they're looking at him too, and how they just talk about getting the ball so much that they see the quickness and his hands and they go, we just got to figure out how to get him in a position where he can make plays like this. And that's where he could be extraordinarily valuable to them. And is this confidence okay? I think it is. Like when I talked about like promoting a positive environment, like I think we've seen some examples of this. Like I saw this interview that Tua did where he just blasted Brian Flores for having a very negative environment a couple of years ago. And I don't know that Ron's was necessarily negative, but think about Forbes, who's just getting crucified, like at every turn, and even mentioned it on the team broadcast that was on the preseason game the other night, where he's just like, I feel like I'm under a microscope, and if I make one mistake, everybody's, pointing it out, and that's life of a corner. Like, but he said, but my coaches are telling me to ignore it, be me. They're working with me. They went out of their way. Like when we were doing the numbers a few weeks ago and we go, does Jamin Davis make this team? It's hard when you do the head count to figure out exactly where he fits. Then I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of the coaches and they started going, slow down. We asked him to do something very different. Not everybody takes to that. Not everybody's willing to do it. He's both. Like he is eagerly trying to do this. He is putting in the time and the effort to do this. Will he end up being really good at it? We don't know. Time will tell, but we appreciate that he wants to get better, that he wants to find a way to be on this team, that he wants to be able to be an impact player. And we're trying to figure that out with him, and we're going to be supportive of it. So in both of their cases, I feel the positive support that is coming from this staff for them. For Forbes specifically, what worries me is scheme fit. I mean, ultimately is what really worries me for him. And then obviously his size. Because if it comes down to one-on-one jump ball situations, he's going to have a problem against bigger receivers. We just know that. But I do worry. Outside of that, like I think they appreciate that he's gone out of his way to try his best to do what they're asking him to do, to put his head down and ignore all the criticism of him. And whether he ends up being a quote-unquote starter or prominent player, we'll find out in a couple of weeks. I don't know how that one's going to end, but he'll be on the team. Like same thing I'll say about Jahan. Like this is not going down a road where he's not going to be on the team.
And with Forbes, the one thing too, like if you didn't like the coaching staff last year, this is his first chance to be coached by, probably it's just by a better group of secondary coaches. He's got to play better. We all know that. But I do think when you have a guy with his skill set, you want to develop and see where it can go. And it's very still early in that development. I know that he did not get beat the other night. However, Benjamin St. Juste did. And the problem I have with the St. Juste one, he actually has inside leverage and he then jumps to, as the guy goes inside, instead of just kind of holding the ground because you already have the leverage, he tries to get inside even more and it just opened up the outside. Just bad technique. But with Forbes, there was one time where, it could have been a problem for him, but the quarterback went a different way. But they seem to be pleased with how he's approached it and then his tackling as well. And so that he's a willing participant in that. So there are things that they're trying to build on with him and they've got to rebuild his confidence. Listen, they don't have a lot of choices there, Bram. It's not like Mike Davis has been out there lighting it up behind him.
Well, this is like receiver too.
Castro Fields has looked good. Castro Fields has looked good. But
yeah, I mean, I think like both of those position groups, receiver and corner, like they have a lot of people, but they don't have a lot of high-end talent, there. And so, both are fighting for these spots. And listen, no roster is complete. So you have to make do with what you have. In Forbes' case, like, we might be looking at this like, let's call this a do-over of his rookie season. Yeah. And if you kind of think of it that way and he progresses, gets better and starts to make some plays, at some point, maybe you'll think differently about him by the end of the year.
Yeah. And because like right now, outside corner remains a question mark. And so it's hard to say otherwise because they have been giving up plays and they weren't facing Waddle and Tyreek Hill the other day. Now you're obviously going to game plan, do all differently. And that's the thing I'm curious to see with this defensive group, what it looks like with Bobby Wagner on the field, right? What it looks like with Payne and Allen and that whole group together. And then what it looks like when you actually start game planning and how the pressure impacts the secondary. We don't know all that yet. So it's really hard to know where are they and who are they going to be on defense for sure. But I do think those corners still have questions to answer, but I also want to see for both of them, they were in a situation where it wasn't great. And so how does, getting more time with this group, how does that help them? Does it help them? is St. Juste a guy that's going to factor in the future with them? I think those are still to be determined.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'll be interested to see, at that position group, do they look to upgrade after cuts?
Right.
Like, I think that's a primary spot that I would look at, that and offensive line. If a person of note comes up after the cut down day next week, I could see there would be some interest
Sure.
for the Commanders to try to upgrade those positions.
And place kicker.
Well, they all but admitted that. So, but those are the two positions. It doesn't take a genius to figure out when you miss like 3 of 5 field goal attempts that you might not make it.
It's and we'll close on that one, but it's kind of incredible because he actually was a decent kicker coming before this camp. He's just been bad outside of one day in Miami in the joint practice. I guess he was 6 for 6. Besides that, it's been clang, wide, miss. It's just been very, very,
whatever he's doing where he's overcompensating. I couldn't believe it. That one practice, not in the one in Miami, but in Ashburn, he had both posts in like the span of like 3 kicks, but he hit both of them.
In fairness,
and then
that's hard
he
to
missed
do.
left and he missed right down there in the preseason game. So like whatever he's doing to overcompensate, he's like overcompensating going both ways. Like most of the time you see guys when they miss badly to like one side, like they hook or they shank. Not this guy. Like when he misses one way, he like tries to fix himself, and then he misses the other way. I feel for him. He must be in his head. I feel for the guy.
Bram, I spent about a half hour, 45 minutes going over his makes and his misses, going and slowing it down frame by frame to see what is the problem here. And then I realized he's probably not going to be on the team anyway. So what are you doing? Get back to the quarterback, get back to the offensive line, whatever.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because
there is a team coming here this weekend that has Chad Ryland, a former draft pick who played at Maryland, and Joey Sly on its roster.
Correct. And
we
that's
played a team earlier this preseason that had Austin Seibert and Greg Zuerlein on their roster.
Right.
So there are going to be people available.
Yeah, and that's always been
Wednesday.
I think most of us have always felt that whoever opens the season to kicker has not been here. So we'll see where it goes. Bram, thanks a lot. Tell people where they can find you. You got all this new stuff going on.
Oh yeah. So Bram Weinstein show is now on Empire Media. It still airs from 11 to 12 on ESPN 630. Then it becomes a podcast and it's out there. It's part of our library. So subscribe to, you do this better than me. Subscribe to the Bram Weinstein show as well.
There you go. All right, folks. Thanks for Bram for joining me. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back on, what's today? Is today Monday? I'll be back on Wednesday after practice. I have a 1 o'clock practice on Wednesday. I'll be back afterwards. Talk to you next time.